My name's Professor Tim Campbell. I'm a visiting professor of international management at the University of Northampton, and I also work closely with the DBA program and supervise students on the DBA program as well, and look after it locally because I'm based here in the United Arab Emirates. But I'll speak more about that later. What I want to do tonight is just to give a short presentation, just about 20 minutes, about some key points about the Doctor of Business Administration program. And then once I've done that, I'll open up the floor to any questions that anyone has. So let's get going. Just before I talk about the DBA program, just if you're wondering where the University of Northampton is, well, it's in a town called Northampton, which is about 100 miles north of London. Takes about an hour on the train to get there. It's an old historic town, very nice town. And in Northampton, you used to, up until before 2018, you used to find the University of Northampton just on the outside of the town, just on the outskirts in a rural area. But in 2018, they opened a brand new campus that's now right in the middle of the town. So a really fantastic addition to the town. Now in fact, if I just go back a couple of photos, and that's just a section of it there that I've shown of the new campus. And here is just a picture I took when I was there one time of the Senate building. And on one of these floors, I've taken a picture on the right, there's the research student space. So that's when any research students or any DBA students, if you're ever on campus, there's always a space there that you can work. The university itself, I'm sure you'll have a look at the website and have a look at all about the university and its history and whatever. So just very briefly, to give you a bit of background, education in Northampton dates back an awfully long time, but the modern university's orange date back about 100 years. And it's got about 14,000 students and about 1,500 staff. So it's a pretty sizable university and has faculties of all the different faculties you would expect from a university. One of them being, of course, the Faculty of Business and Law, which is where the DBA sits. And that's, of course, what we're here tonight to primarily talk about. So let's get on to talking about this Doctorate of Business Administration program, the DBA. And the question I get most of the time is, well, what is a doctorate? And I think that's a good starting point. Well, doctorates, they've actually been around for hundreds of years, but nowadays we have two types of doctorates. One we call professional doctorates, and they're, well, first I should say that a doctorate is sometimes called a terminal degree. So it's generally considered the highest degree that you can attain. So most of you will be aware you go bachelor's, master's, then doctorate. There are some postdoctoral certificates and things, but generally speaking, that's the way it goes. And then, as I was saying, doctorates have been around for hundreds of years in universities. And what they've sort of evolved into today is two types of doctorates. One is a doctorate for people who are primarily engaged within a profession. So we call those professional doctorates. And I'm sure the one that you're most familiar with is when you go and see your physician, see your doctor. That person is in the medical profession and will usually have an MD. But we have doctorates in all the different professions. If you're pharmacists, have a doctorate in pharmacy. Education people have an EdD, a Doctor of Education, for those people who want to go into the highest levels of education. Engineers have an EngD, Doctorate of Engineering. So all of those are professional doctorates, doctorates for people who are primarily engaged within a profession. Then the other type of doctorate we had are those who are primarily engaged in research and academics. And the most well-known one of that is the PhD, the Doctorate of Philosophy. So we have these two types of doctorates. They're both academically equivalent. In the UK, they're both at what we call level 8. And they're actually both research-based degrees. It's just the focus that's different. Professional doctorates are more practical. Research doctorates could be purely theoretical. And especially for the DBA, and I'll mention this again a bit later, it's very important for a DBA, for Doctor of Business Administration, to have a practical outcome. In fact, it must have a practical outcome. In some way, it must influence business and management. But they are both research-based degrees, and on the DBA program, you will do one big research project. You'll be taught all about research methodology, and then you'll do the thesis stage. And of course, you'll both confer upon the bearer the title doctor. Once you complete a doctorate, you are entitled to use, you use the title doctor. Just one final word on this. I know this is a wordy slide, but it just makes the distinction quite nicely, I think. And this was just something I found on allbusinessschools.com. And it just says, PhD programs in business focus intensively on preparing candidates to conduct highly specialized scholarly research. They focus on the development of new theory in management, economics, and related fields. Most PhD in business administration graduates lead to careers as university researchers and professors, or as senior researchers in business or government. So that's research doctorate. And then it says the DBA program focuses on the application of theory rather than on the development of new theory. The Doctor of Business Administration, by virtue of its focus on the application of theory, has more practical applications and managerial settings than a PhD. And that quite nicely separates the two. But do bear in mind, it's not a hard and fast rule. I've known plenty of people in business schools who teach in business schools and have DBA degrees. And equally, I know people in industry who have PhDs. So as I say, this is just essentially what separates the two. So what sort of topics do our DBA students choose? You can choose for their research project. You can choose anything business and management related. So it can be any of the functions: human resources, organizational behavior, accounting, finance, social responsibility, sustainability, ethics, entrepreneurship, innovation, anything basically business and management related. And these are some topics that some of our students have done. Looking at a critical examination of a performance management system, leadership styles, corporate governance, looking at value chain in a manufacturing business, investing in high-tech startups, resolving project conflicts, luxury goods in the UAE, and knowledge transfer and management training. I've just selected a random bunch of topics there just to give you an idea of the sorts of things that our students do, but they do anything business and management related. And I've seen topics such as things like big data and sustainability and these sorts of topics becoming more and more prominent over the last few years. But as I say, anything business and management. Having a look at how it's taught or the structure of it, the first thing to notice, we're on to the next intake, which will be our 15th intake, and that's for this Middle East and North Africa, rather Middle East and Africa intake that has the taught modules in the UAE, is, as I say, 15th intake, and we have 2 intakes a year, so we've been running for what, 7 or 8 years now, so quite a long time for this course. So the intake in May, the first workshop is from the 25th to the 28th of May. You'll come here to the UAE and you'll do that first module, the Induction Principles of Research. Then about 2 or 3 months later, you'll come back and do the next module, Quantitative Data Analysis. 2 or 3 months later, the next module, Qualitative Data Analysis. So you get the picture. The first 2 years is making your way through those taught modules, which teach you everything you need to know about research, to move on to the second 2 years, which is where you do your thesis, where you do your big research project. So the first 2 years is preparing you to do the actual project, and in 4 years, the DBA is done. Now, your academic consultant at Stafford has the exact dates of these workshops. So if you don't have it already, please ask them for it. And the other thing to remember is this is the start date of the course, the 25th to the 28th of May. We need applications in a long time before that, because there's quite a process to getting your applications actually done and go through the interview and everything else, and to actually be accepted on the course. So that's the start date. Applications need to be quite considerably before that. Types of assessment on the program, every module has a different type of assessment. It might be an essay, it could be a seminar presentation, a portfolio, a research report, and in the final module, you actually do another research proposal. You do an initial one to get you onto the program, a very basic one. But by the end of the 2 years, you do a very detailed and in-depth proposal that actually leads you on to the thesis stage. And you also do a practa viva voce, which is an oral examination, and that's how your thesis is examined. So that's how you're ultimately examined at the end of your course. It's through an oral examination. So all sorts of different methods. And as I say, that thesis, that last 2 years, you'll put together a 40,000 word thesis and do your oral examination at the University of Northampton. And that's the only time you actually need to be on campus. There's lots and lots of support for the program. There's the international program leader who you'll meet at the interview stage of the application process. Every module tutor, of course, has an expert tutor, depending on what the topic is. When you get to the thesis stage, you have 3 people who look after you individually. Your director of study, whose job it is to manage your study, and then you'll have 2 research supervisors for the thesis. There's Northampton administration, the graduate school, there's all sorts of things. All of the university's administration is there for you, as well as local administration. At Stafford, the staff there can point you in the right direction if you get lost. The virtual learning environment we use is called NILE, Northampton Integrated Learning Environment. I'll show you a screenshot of that in a moment. And everything you need, all the resources are on the university's online library. So everything you need to access is all done electronically. And here's what that NILE site looks like, just to give you a glance of it. Every module has one of these sites, and it's where your tutor posts anything they think you need. All of you see on this one, this is the first module. Obviously, there's announcements and contacts, but then in the induction day and the workshops, there's all sorts of activities and lecture slides and videos, and reading resources. This is where you'll hand in your assessments and get your grade and feedback back, basically everything. So you do your face-to-face workshop, and then you continue your journey with your tutor using the NILE virtual learning environment. I mentioned the graduate school before, and just to not forget about, to introduce it, the graduate school is that the university looks after all of the postgraduate researchers across the whole university. So not only do you have the resources available to you for the DBA program, if you need extra training in things like SPSS, which is a quantitative analysis tool, or research ethics, or in vivo, which is a qualitative analysis tool, or many other things, the graduate school holds training courses throughout the year, face-to-face and online. And as a DBA student, you can tap into any one of those, and also has all sorts of other useful resources as well for you to use. So as well as everything on your DBA program, you also get access to that graduate school. All right, let me just talk a few more things about the DBA. What about the entry requirements? You need a master's degree in a business-related subject completed within the last 10 years, ideally. Although if it is longer than that, and you can show that you've been attending training courses or certain things to keep your knowledge up to date, that is usually okay. Expected to have a minimum of 5 years work experience, at least some of which should be at senior level. Remember, this is a professional doctorate, as I mentioned, so you do need that experience. And to be employed in a leadership management role capable of supporting the achievement of the program learning outcomes. What that means is a lot of the facilitated modules will actually have assessment based on your own workplace, or have things that you need to do based on your own workplace. So you need to be in a role capable of supporting that. And when you actually apply, the first things are fairly standard, a CV and then a personal statement where you just need to explain basically why you want to do DBA, excuse me, your motivations for doing it, how you're going to manage your time, because it does take time. It is a big journey, a doctorate. All of these sorts of things go in your personal statement, how it's going to help you in your career. And then when they look for 2 references, usually one is supposed to be work, one is academic, if possible. Sometimes I know if you've been out of study for a long time, it's difficult to get that. And then your academic consultant at Stafford will advise if that's the case. And your degree certificates and transcripts. If your master's degree was in English, you won't need to bother about this, but you may be asked for evidence of English language ability if your master's isn't in English, or if there's some question about that. But you don't need to do anything beforehand, only if you're asked for it. And the second 2 things are important. There's the research proposal, and I'll talk about that in the next couple of slides. It's only about 1,000 words, and there's a form you need to fill in to give the admissions team an idea of what you want to study. on the DBA program, what you want to research, what your area of interest is. And there's also, if you get past the first stage and they like the proposal and you've put in your CV and all the other bits and pieces, you'll be invited for an interview with the DBA program leader and somebody else in the field as well that can help, that will, from the university, that will, for example, if you're doing HR, it'll usually be someone in HR or finance, someone in finance or whatever, someone who can comment on the subject you're proposing. And then it is important to prepare for that interview. They'll ask you all about your CV and your personal statement, but most of it they're going to spend the time on is that proposal. They're going to really talk to you about and really find out if you've really thought about what you want to do and really have searched for some resources. And then successfully with the interview, all going well, you'll be on the program. As I said, just a couple more things on that research proposal. The first is, why do we ask for a research proposal before you're even on the program? And it's required for three main reasons. We need to find out whether the applicant is capable of studying at doctoral level, because it's a long journey, it's very resource intensive, and we want to make sure that people who are accepted on the program have the best opportunity of success. And I can tell you of the people who apply for this program, who go through the full admissions procedure, only about 50% get on the program. So it's about a 1 and 2 ratio. But, it is important that the people that are accepted, the admissions team believe they have the best chance of being successful. Also need to find out, does the proposed research fit with the nature of a DBA? Is it a business management topic? Does it have a practical outcome? These types of things. And the third one is, does the university have an appropriate supervisor? Now they have supervisors in all the major areas of business and management. But if you came up with a proposal, something very niche or very specialized, they may not have a supervisor. So at this early research proposal stage, it's better to keep it a little bit broader, not something very, very specialized, because it just may not be able to be supervised. And what do the Northampton team look for in a proposal? Can it make a practical contribution to business and management? Can the applicant reference using the Harvard method? Can they write a brief literature review and cite just a few authors in the field that they're interested in studying? Do they have a basic understanding of research methods? And at the bottom of the slide, I put all business and management master's graduates should already have these skills, things that you've learned in your master's. Right, last few things from me before I'll have a look at the questions. For fees, please have a look at the Stafford Global website. University of Northampton, of course, partners with Stafford Global here for the marketing and student recruitment side of things. And fees can change per intake, so please look at that to make sure you've got the latest fees. Also remember, Stafford Global is just the marketing and recruitment partner. You are completely a student of the University of Northampton when you're on the program. You're completely taught by the University of Northampton. Your degree comes from there, your transcript comes from there, you go to the graduation there and everything else. So do bear in mind all of the academics of the university. Why should you do a DBA at Northampton? It's an investment in your future, both in the academic and professional fields. It's the highest qualification in business and management. You get to contribute to business and management practice. It would be expected that your thesis would be published. And you have international and local supervision and support, and then your workshops from leading international faculty. And the last word from me that sort of sums things up, I suppose. Completion of the Northampton DBA will set you apart as an expert, able to lead and manage at the highest levels. You will have made a unique contribution to your field and developed outstanding analytical, critical, creative, and reflective skills so needed in today's business world. And it's always great to see what our graduates go on to do. We have people they go on to set up their own businesses, be consultants, go up to the highest levels of organizations and industry. Have one of my students who set up a management training business. So there's all sorts of opportunities that become open. Right, look at that, bang on 20 minutes. That's all I want to say by way of presentation, because of course what's important here is that I answer some of your questions that you have. And the easiest way to do that with a group is to use that question box on your right. Well, for me, it's on the right. Oh, question box on your panel there. I see I've got some questions. and I'll read them out. Oh, I've got a lot of them, okay. And I shall start, and please, any questions, just type them away and I will get to them. Right, so we've got, let me take the first question. Can the program be completed in 2 to 3 years? The short answer to that is no. You need the 4 years. So the first 2 years is already timetabled, so that takes 2 years. You could, if you're very good, try and do the thesis in a bit of a shorter period of time, but it wouldn't help you at all because you need that time. You want to be doing your best work and make sure you pass and pass as well as you can. You don't want to be trying to finish just a few months earlier just for the sake of finishing a few months earlier. That makes no sense. You do need those 4 years. What's my next question here? I completed my master's degree in engineering almost 16 years ago. Will I be accepted in engineering? We would need to see. You need to have a look at your, normally we look for business and management degrees, of course, but perhaps your engineering degree has some business and management in it. We would need to see, and perhaps there's some training courses or some things like that you could also add on to your application. My advice would be apply, get it looked at by the academic consultant at Stafford, and then we can always apply and find out. Will I meet my supervisors face to face? You will meet them using virtual technologies, or if you're on campus at some stage in Northampton, I'm sure your supervisor would love to see you. Remember, your director of studies and first supervisor both come from the University of Northampton. Your second supervisor comes from a different university, which I think is something, again, really good about the program. You not only get the University of Northampton input, you get somebody from a different university who knows more about the local context there as well. So that's how your meetings take place virtually. And we normally try and schedule meetings every 6 weeks with our students. That's the expectations we have. Oh, here's a good question. I've been advised that the workshops are currently face-to-face. Yes, they are. I'm very pleased to say that since we had about 2.5 years of virtual workshops during COVID. And I'm very pleased to say that we are back face-to-face with the faculty flying in from the University of Northampton. It is very important to make those workshops because they're such an important part of the program. Remember, this isn't an online program. It's a part-time program. So it's very important to make those workshops there an integral part of it. So, but that said, if you missed one of the workshops and you had a very good reason for doing so, then you could work with your tutor who would try the best to catch you up. But really, when you look at those 6 workshops, think about that. You need to be there for them. Here's a good one. Will my degree state online distance learning? No, it won't. As I just mentioned, it is not an online degree. It's a part-time taught degree. So that's very important. How do I prepare for my interview with the academic panel? As I said, interviews are really important. I really think some applicants just don't put enough thought into that interview and the questions they'll be asked. So to prepare, you'll be asked firstly things in your personal statement. So you'll be asked general things about your workplace and what you do and that type of thing. And then they'll talk more about what are your motivations for doing the doctorate. How's this going to help you? How's it going to help you personally in your career? And then they'll talk about things. Why do you want to do a DBA and not a PhD? Remember, which was a research doctorate. Why do you want a professional doctorate? How does that suit you better? So there'll be these sorts of general questions, but the majority of the interview will be about that proposal. So they talk about the proposal, and they're going to go down and talk about the different sections of your form and how you plan to do that. So to prepare, just make sure you know your personal statement, your motivations for doing the degree, know your proposal back to front, and that's the best way. Then you'll be ready. Can I change my research topic during my studies? Yeah, technically you can. You're not bound to that proposal that you begin with, that you send in with your application. And well, I can tell you, everyone's proposal actually does change to an extent. By the time you get to the end of that first 2 years, you'll find your proposal has changed. For the majority of people, it'll still be basically within the same topic. It's just going to be a lot more refined and detailed and everything else, of course. But you could completely change the topic if you really felt that was necessary, but you'd need to consult with the tutors on the program just to make sure you're making the right decision. What else have we got here? If I fail at the interview stage, what would happen to my application? Can I apply again? Well, if you don't get accepted onto the program, the university does give you feedback as to why that is, and they will usually say, perhaps if it's an issue with the proposal or something, often they will say at the end, and allow you to apply again at the next intake, to work on it, refine it, apply again. So yes, you can. Often they will allow you then just to try again at the next intake, based on their feedback. Are there plans to do the weekends the workshops online, and if so, when? At the moment, it is a face-to-face part-time program, as I mentioned. With there's no plans to do it unless I suppose we're forced into it due to COVID or for some other reasons. At the moment, it is a face-to-face program because we feel that is such an important part of the program. But I'm not sure if we had enough interest at some stage, perhaps a year down, perhaps a year down the track or something. If there was interest just to have them purely virtual, then we'd certainly look at that, I'm sure. But I suppose my best answer to that at the moment is that they are face-to-face for now. Now, let's see if I've missed anything. No, I think that's about it. All right. So thank you all for your questions. If something does come to you, just take a note of my details and then you can get hold of me anytime. And do bear in mind that when you apply and you have some ideas about what you want to do for your proposal, normally the best thing to do is just put a draft together of the proposal, send it back to your academic consultant at Stafford, and I actually have a look at them all before they're submitted, and I give my advice whether I think it needs a bit more work or whether it's okay to submit. So do bear there is that in mind. You don't need to come up with a complete proposal straight away. You might want to just have a draft, get a few ideas down on that research proposal form, send it back to your academic consultant, they'll send it to me, I'll give some comments, and then you keep working on it a bit more, if needs be. Anyway, thanks very much for listening, everybody. As I say, any questions at all, you can always just contact me anyway. But I hope you found that useful, and I really hope I will see you on the program at the next workshop in late May. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.